Anyway, let me try to explain everything I know, Quinn said as he grabbed the pencils and wrote a pros and cons list right next to Peter's name. Are you ready? The system asked. While the system explained the difference between a vampire and a vampire ghoul, Quinn would write it down on a piece of paper while explaining it out loud to the others. Why don't we start with the positives? The system said. First, unlike a vampire, a ghoul is not affected by sunlight. The system continued, and so did Quinn. Ghouls are stronger, faster, and can see better than a human, but their main strength is their incredible healing abilities. They are even more impressive than yours, Quinn. Broken bones, chunks of flesh will be instantly healed on the spot, Vorden said. Peter, this means we can just say you have a self-healing ability. There are a few of them out there, although we will have to keep it a secret from the school, since they all think you have an earth ability. Now the next bit of information is more for you, Quinn, the system said. Ghouls are most loyal to their maker. The main reason for this is because your blood resides inside their body. Unfortunately, what this means is you will need to supply Peter with your blood, otherwise his body will start to deteriorate and eventually will cease to exist. As long as he gets a supply of your blood, then he will live on forever by your side. What do you mean by loyal? Quinn asked. Similar to how your charm skills work, whatever you command, Peter will feel like he has no choice but to obey, although this does depend on the amount of your blood that remains inside his body. The longer he goes without a new dose of blood, the less inclined he will be to follow your orders. What about human blood? Will I need to drink that? Peter asked as he gulped, feeling a strange new hunger in his stomach. No, there is no need to drink human blood, Quinn replied. Actually, unlike me who gets stronger from human blood, it will not affect you. Now, time for the cons, the system said. Hearing these words made Quinn's hand shake a little, and the others could see this as he was getting ready to write down what the system was telling him. First off, the ability for Peter to eat regular food has completely disappeared. If he eats regular food, he will immediately throw it back up. Then does he just have to live off my blood then? Quinn asked the system. No, the blood is a rare thing and will hardly be needed. I would more often feed Peter just to keep him loyal to you, but still, a ghoul needs a food source, the system replied. A ghoul needs to feed on human flesh. The pencil in Quinn's hand had dropped onto the table and rolled onto the floor. Peter, you're not feeling hungry by any chance, are you? Quinn asked. I'm feeling a bit peckish. I haven't eaten since this morning after all, Peter replied honestly. Peter, maybe it's best if you sit down for this, Quinn said. What? Why? Peter looked at him, fidgeting. You're making me even more scared. Just sit down, Quinn said. But as he said these words, his eyes started to glow a little. Peter didn't know why, but he felt like he needed to complete the task immediately. After sitting on the bed, Quinn was trying to find the best way to put the bad news into words. I can see this is troublesome, so let me give you a solution for now, the system said. As a temporary measure, he might be able to last a few days on raw animal meat, but sooner or later you will have to grab him human flesh. He looked Peter in the eyes and finally found the courage to tell him, Being a ghoul means you can no longer eat regular food. You're going to have to eat raw meat from now on. Just then, Vorden and Quinn decided to head to the nearby convenience store to grab some things as a test, while they asked Peter to stay in the room. Once again, although Peter was scared and wanted to come with them, a certain feeling was passing from Quinn and on to Peter, making him feel like he had to obey. As the two of them walked to the convenience store, Quinn was awfully quiet, which made Vorden suspicious that Quinn was holding something else back. Go on, tell me then, Vorden said. You could have gone to the shop on your own, but you wanted me to come along. It's about Peter, Quinn said quietly. I didn't tell Peter everything. Being a ghoul doesn't mean he has to eat raw meat. He needs to eat raw human meat. Raw animal meat will only work for a short time. Suddenly, Vorden stopped in his tracks. Quinn, I'm being serious when I suggest this here, but wouldn't it be better to just kill Peter? And before you say anything, hear me out. He's not the type of guy who can handle this, and if he gets caught, then don't think he won't give you in. He won't. He can't, Quinn replied. How can you be so sure? Vorden asked, a bit surprised by Quinn's sudden answer. It was hard for Quinn to explain, but he could feel the connection between the two of them now. Essentially, Peter's whole existence now depended on him, and as long as Quinn asked for it, Peter would do it. Well, I can tell you won't take my suggestion, but let me tell you this then, Vorden said. Taking a life isn't as easy as you think. Finally, the two had returned to the dorm room where Peter had stayed waiting for them. He was in the same spot as when the two had left him. "That smells nice," Peter said. "What did you bring?" They placed the raw steak out on a plate and put it right in front of Peter. "Is he going to eat it?" Vorden said. "I don't know, it looks pretty good to me as well," Quinn replied. "I can't tell if you're trying to be funny or what, man," Vorden said, with a disgusted look on his face. It didn't take long for Peter to dive in. His once dull teeth had turned sharp like a lion, helping him rip the meat to pieces, and after only a couple of minutes, the whole steak had been devoured. But the only one that got a good night's sleep was Peter. The other two were lost in thought. Vorden couldn't stop thinking about the fact that he was sleeping in a room with a cannibal. At least Quinn would only suck his blood, but with Peter, he might wake up with an arm missing. While Quinn was thinking along similar lines. "System, do you know how long until he starts craving for human flesh, and will I still be able to control him?" Quinn asked. "His hunger will outgrow your commands, but he will not attack you. However, about a time frame, I am unsure. Best case scenario is a week." "And worst case?" Quinn asked. "Tomorrow." The next day had arrived, and when Vorden had woken up, he had faint bags under his eyes. Quinn eventually managed to get some sleep, but he didn't seem to have fared much better either. "Didn't get much sleep?" Quinn asked. Vorden shook his head while looking at Peter, who seemed to still be sleeping peacefully away. "At least he still looks like a human." Within the next 2 days off, Quinn knew he needed to hurry and find a solution to Peter's situation. While Quinn was thinking about what to do, a knock was heard at the door. When they opened the door, they were surprised to see Layla there. "It seems like she has calmed down a bit," Layla said. "Anyway, what about him?" Quinn then went on to explain what had happened to Peter and how he had turned into a ghoul. When Quinn mentioned this, her face immediately dropped. "Oh, I almost forgot," Vorden said, as he went under his bed and pulled out a small bag before throwing it over to Quinn, who caught it. Quinn opened the bag and noticed that it seemed to be full of crystals. "You mean these are—" Quinn asked, with a look of excitement on his face. "Yep, the winged lizard crystals you asked for," Vorden replied with a smile. Looking in the bag, there looked to be around 30 of them. Quinn couldn't imagine what the group must have done to be able to obtain this many. Right now, though, he had enough crystals to create a costume for himself. If he could use this to create a full set of clothing, then he would finally be able to fight during the day. Vorden could see that Quinn seemed to be struggling with something. "Just go do whatever you need to do," Vorden said. "Layla and I can deal with the problem. I have an idea anyway." "Are you sure? What about the others? Do you want me to pay you guys for these?" Quinn asked. "Are you joking?" Layla said. "Quinn, if it wasn't for you back then when the Dalki attacked, we would have all lost our lives. The least we could do is give you these crystals for free." Quinn looked at them one more time. "All right, just let me know if there are any problems. I should be in the VIP area just above." After that, Quinn quickly rushed out of the room with the crystals in his hand. Inside the second-year building, Duke was sitting down at his desk smoking a cigar in his office. "Damn, that True Dream guy is coming again," Duke said to himself. The door to the room then swung open as one of the sergeants with an afro on the top of his head and sunglasses came walking in. "Sir, I have brought the list of names that you asked for." "Let's see. Looks like we have a good mix of abilities here," Duke said. "And you've checked the background of all of these? There will be no complaints from important families if something was to go wrong, correct?" "Yes, sir." At the top of the list of names, one of the students' pictures was being displayed. It was a picture of Peter Chuck. It was their day off. Early in the morning, Quinn went out to meet up with Logan. He had left both Layla and Vorden behind to keep an eye on Peter. Quinn had told them that at some point, Peter would be required to eat human flesh. It could take up to a week, but it could also be tomorrow. It could also be as soon as today, Vorden thought to himself. "Come on, Peter," Vorden said. "Let's head outside." "Outside?" Peter asked, his tone slightly confused. "Well, if I were you, the first thing I'd want to do was to test out my new powers. Why don't we take a look at what you can do now?" "I think that's a great idea," Layla said. The three of them grabbed a few things and got ready to go outside. Just as they were about to leave, Peter stopped by the entrance. "Don't worry," Layla said. "Even Quinn doesn't burn under the sunlight. He just feels weak and sluggish. Besides, just in case Quinn was wrong, I brought an umbrella with me." Peter closed his eyes and stepped outside under direct sunlight. Just as Quinn had said, he didn't feel any weaker than before. He felt the same on the inside as he did outside. The group walked toward the park. They continued to walk until they had finally found a quiet and clear area in the woods that was devoid of trees. It was also hidden from view. "This place is perfect. Besides, if anyone comes close, we will be able to hear them in time," Vorden said. "What should we test first?" Layla asked. "How about strength and speed?" Vorden said as he walked up to Layla, holding out his hand. "Do you mind?" "Fine." She held out her hand and allowed Vorden to copy her abilities. The two of them then lifted a bunch of branches and sticks off of the ground. "Just do your best to avoid the sticks as much as you can," Vorden shouted. "Looks like not only has his speed gotten better, but his reflexes as well," Vorden said. "But he's still Peter." Peter nodded when he was ready, and the two of them immediately started to hover the sticks up in the air, aiming to hit Peter with them. For Peter, it was the first time that he felt confident during practice. It was like he could see the attacks coming towards him. Just then, Vorden timed both sticks at the same time. Peter pulled his body back, avoiding the first stick. Then, the second one from behind came right at his face, but he still managed to catch the second stick out of the air at the last second, just as he pulled his face back. However, the tip of the stick still managed to cut his cheek, drawing the smallest amount of blood. "No, sorry, Peter," Vorden yelled as the two of them rushed over. But by the time they reached him, the blood had fallen to the ground, and the cut that was once on Peter's cheek was no longer there. "Looks like the super healing can be checked as well," Vorden said with a smile on his face. The next test they had for Peter was his strength. For this trial, they used a simple tree. "So, you want me to just punch a tree?" Peter asked, looking at it carefully. "Just go for it," Layla said. "You already know that you have super healing." "But that doesn't mean I don't feel any pain," Peter said. But he was also curious to see how much stronger he had gotten. He righted himself and looked at the tree, then pulling back his fist, he swung it outward. As he hit the tree, he had done so at an odd angle, causing his wrist to bend on impact. He screamed out in pain. When they looked at the tree, there was a large dent that had been made. "Well, we know you have abnormal strength, that's for sure, but I think there's a clear difference between you and Quinn," Layla said. "What do you mean?" Peter asked. "Well, let's say if Quinn was to do the same thing. Even if he didn't punch the tree dead on, his wrist probably would have been fine. I think that's because his body is stronger than that of a regular human," Layla explained. "While yours, although you have super strength, your body is still just like ours, made of regular bones and flesh. If you attack at full power, you will probably end up hurting yourself." As soon as Layla had finished explaining, the wristwatch on Peter's arm lit up. When he looked at it, he could see a voice message that had been left. "This is General Duke. Peter, Chuck, you are required to come to my office in the second-year building immediately. I have some important things to discuss with you." As soon as Vorden heard the message, there was no longer any need for him to ask Peter who was behind everything. He had already figured it out. Why else would the head of the second year have anything to do with the first year? The problem now was, how could he go up against a general of a military base? "What should I do?" Peter asked as he walked back to the military base with the other two. "We'll follow along as far as we can go. Just agree to whatever they ask of you for now, and we can figure it out later," Vorden said. Just then, as they were about to exit the forest, Vorden suggested that Peter walk up ahead while they followed him from behind. "Peter, I'm taking my chances with you this time. I have forgiven you. It doesn't mean I trust you. Not yet, or maybe ever." Layla nudged Vorden in the ribs. "Give the guy a break, will you?" she whispered. She gave Peter an encouraging smile. However, Vorden was dead serious. They had finally arrived at the second-year building. From this point on, Vorden and Layla could no longer follow. Peter entered the building and walked into Duke's office. "Please, come and sit down, Peter," Duke said. "It seems the two of us haven't been able to talk since the last task I had set for you." Duke then went under his desk and pulled out several books and placed them on the table. There were 3 Earth ability books numbered from 2 up to 4. "Although things didn't go quite according to plan, you still held up your end of the bargain, and I don't want to seem like a person who doesn't keep his promises," he said, smiling. If Peter didn't notice it before, he could notice it now. There was something sinister about Duke's smile. Just why was he trying so hard to get rid of Vorden in the first place? Peter thought. Isn't everyone on the same side to fight against the Dalki? "Thank you, sir. Is there anything else you would like me to do?" Peter asked. We have a visitor next week, and I'm going to need you to learn the Earth ability up to level 4. In a couple of weeks, come back and report to me. You're dismissed." Peter then bowed down to the general before leaving the room. "Looks like I've been able to convert another one. In the end, everyone wants to be at the top," the Duke thought. As Peter left the room, he spotted Earl waiting just outside to be called in. "What are you looking at, dog?" he snapped back. Earl still hadn't recovered from what Vorden had done to him before the outing. Hearing those words and seeing Earl again, sudden images started to appear in his head. Unpleasant images. Very unpleasant. "Hey, I know. Why don't you wait for me out back after this? I and the boys have a little surprise for you," Earl said. "Whatever you say, Earl," Peter replied, secretly smiling on the inside. While the others were busy doing their own thing, Erin had eventually calmed down from it all. When she thought back to the image of the Dalki, her body started to shiver uncontrollably. "Calm down, Erin. Deep breaths," she thought to herself. While she was fine with keeping Quinn's identity a secret, she was nervous about covering her own back, and curious to see just how dangerous this vampire thing was. Eventually, that led her to the library. At first, Erin went down the non-fiction aisle to see if there was anything she could find, but there was nothing. There were no vampires, and there didn't seem to be anything close to describing them in the first place. This left her no choice but to head to the fiction section, and nearly instantly she found several novels about vampires. But just from looking at the covers, she found it hard to tell what vampires were. Vampire the Last Blood, Bite Me or Love Me, Thicker Than Blood. Erin decided to just pick up one of the books at random. She picked up the book titled Bite Me or Love Me. She stood there in the aisle and started reading it. "So, you're interested in vampires, huh?" a boy's voice said, coming from her left side. As she turned her head to see who it was, "I didn't expect to see a beautiful girl like you here," the boy said as he swept back his black hair. "The name's Fex. Nice to meet you." Outside the second-year building, out in the open field, Layla and Vorden were still patiently waiting. Peter had gone in a while ago, but now they started to wonder what was taking him so long. They concluded that it wasn't likely that Peter was going to come out any time soon. They had a feeling something might have happened. With that in mind, the two of them decided to stop waiting out front and started to head around the back. There was no entrance to get into the school from the back, but perhaps they could find some other entrance, either by climbing some walls or through some other means. When they got around to the back side of the building, they could see another student standing guard there. Using Layla's powers, they both lifted a couple of stones and threw them to distract the student. "Are you ready?" Layla asked with a smile. She couldn't believe she was having fun sneaking around and causing trouble, and with Vorden of all people. "As I thought, you do look a little cute when you're smiling," Vorden said in response. Peter was patiently waiting outside the place where he had suggested. Hey, Peter, it's been a while, hasn't it?" Earl said as he walked closer before, adding, "You know, lately, Duke has been blaming me for all of the failed attempts against Vorden, so I haven't been getting any rewards. How are you going to solve that for me?" While walking closer to Peter, Earl looked at what was in Peter's hands, which were the level 2, 3, and 4 Earth ability books. Although Earl was already a level 4 Earth user and had no need for the books himself, he could always sell them on the market to earn some money. "Hand them over, you piece of crap," Earl said as he slapped Peter across the face, leaving a red mark. Peter looked at the mark on his face. Usually, in a situation like this, his hands would be shaking. Earl then proceeded to kick Peter in the stomach before grabbing him by the collar and throwing him onto the ground. Peter was now in a space between two buildings, namely the second-year building and one of the storage rooms. It was a place that was quite dark, and unless someone purposely went around the back to find them, no one would find out. "Well then, isn't this a quiet little place for the two of us to carry on our usual business?" Earl asked with a smile. Peter then stood up and responded with a smile, "Indeed it is." After distracting the students who were standing by the side of the building using the floating stones, they were able to gradually make their way towards the back of the second-year building without being seen. "Come on, let's keep looking," Layla said. "There must be some way to get into the school. Maybe there's a pipe or something we can use to climb up to the windows." "You have been watching way too many martial arts movies," Layla said. Still, they decided to check it out now that they were here anyway. As they made their way to the space between the two buildings, Certain cracking and gobbling noises were made, as if some type of wild dog was wolfing down its meal. Finally, they turned the corner, only to see Peter there. However, he wasn't alone. His hands and mouth were covered in blood, while a dead body wearing a student's uniform laid in front of him. The student's body had parts of its limbs torn off. Also some bones with little bits of flesh still attached could be seen, and they looked as if someone had hungrily ripped the meat right off the bone. "Peter?" Layla said. "What have you done?" The VIP dorm rooms of the first-year building were on the 3rd floor. Quinn had decided to head here to meet someone. At first, Quinn knocked on the door, but there seemed to be no answer. When trying to push the door open, he was surprised to see that it wasn't locked, nor shut properly. "Hello?" Quinn asked as he crept into the room. Just at the other end of the room, he could see Logan in his chair. He had some sort of metallic tool glove in his right hand, while a giant pair of goggles seemed to be hovering over his eyes. Oh, he was just busy as usual, Quinn thought to himself. Quinn then started to look around the room at all the gadgets around him. He knew when Logan was in his concentration mode, no matter what you did, you wouldn't get his attention. But as Quinn was looking around, he spotted a strange object on one of the shelves. It stood out compared to the rest, because most of the things in the room seemed to be covered in dust, but not this one. It was a square-shaped device, no bigger than a laptop, and on the top, it seemed to have some type of digital display. Inspect. A return portal device. When the correct access code has been entered, it will return you to the destination that has been preset. Creator, Richard Eno. Quinn moved in to take a closer look. It seemed to be the only item that wasn't made by Logan, and on top of that, it was a teleporter. But it was one that he had never seen before. The portal teleporters they currently carried were quite large devices, but this one was small and compact, as if the technology was ahead of their current time. Quinn reached out to grab it, but just then a voice from behind spoke to him. "Hey, if you want to get your fingers blown off, then please be my guest. Carry on and touch it," Logan said sarcastically. His seat was turned around, and he was staring at Quinn. "Then again, I would love to see whose ability is stronger, mine or yours," he continued. "Sorry about that," Quinn said as he pulled back his hand. "It looks kind of interesting. What is it exactly?" When Quinn finished talking, the robotic gauntlet that was one of Logan's hands started to break down. It appeared to break into smaller parts until they looked like little bugs. Then, the bugs went over to where Quinn was. They grabbed the case and brought it over to Logan. "The thing has been the bane of me and my family's life," Logan said, looking around it. "As you know, my family are originals who hid their abilities from the world. Before the war started, they were researchers who worked privately for different corporations, sometimes even governments, different armies, and all sorts of companies. Anyway, on one of their trips around 50 years ago, they discovered this device. At the time, no one knew what it was, and it seemed like our ability didn't work on it either. Of course, my family tried to research it, and eventually, when we discovered the Dalki technology, we found similarities between this and the Dalki technology. It appears to be some type of teleporter, but the question is, why would Dalki technology exist on Earth before they even arrived? Then that just brings us even more questions. Why did the Dalki attack us? Were they here before? But did we just never know about it? Hearing all of these questions were causing Quinn to think about it. "Anyway," Logan said, "it's not like I'm expecting you to know any of these answers. The one thing we do know is whoever was able to create a compact teleporter such as this is a genius. Oh, how I wish I could meet him one day." "Wait, what did you say?" Quinn replied. "Did you say you don't know who created it?" "Of course I don't. If I did, my family and I would have been chasing him for generations." This made Quinn sink even deeper in thought. Richard Eno was a well-known scientist, the person who had discovered not only the power of beast crystals, but also how the Dalki portals worked. Could he have known everything all along? Right now, though, this was too big of a problem to solve, especially for someone like him. He was just one person in this whole thing, and he had his problems to deal with. "Anyway," Logan said, "what did you visit me here for? Did you want to play the game again?" "Actually," Quinn said, "I was wondering if you could help me make a suit." "Well, it seems you've come to the right person," said Logan. "I can design you one myself." "Really?" Quinn asked, surprised. "Of course, it will be easier than making some of my other contraptions," he said, smiling. The two of them then sat down together. The crystals were placed in a seemingly special container while they were going through some type of melting process. On top of Logan's desk, a large metal sheet was placed. Logan then placed his hand on the sheet and closed his eyes. Just like with the gauntlet before, the metal started to break down and move, eventually turning into little metal bugs again. The metal bugs started to form a human figure until it molded something that vaguely resembled Quinn. The two of them continued to go through the design process, altering what the metal model looked like. Each time Quinn would give a suggestion, the robots would move in place. There was not much that could be done with the suit. It had to be black in color and skin fit tight. However, the mask could be altered greatly. When using the outfit and mask, Quinn wanted to strike fear into his opponent's hearts. He wanted something quite scary looking. They went through several designs until it was finally done. "It's amazing," Quinn said as he walked over to it and started to stroke the model. The black suit was skin-tight, but had a scaled pattern like that of a snake throughout its entire surface. However, there were a few design touches added to it from Logan that Quinn hadn't asked for. "Do you like the additions that I made?" Logan asked. On the forearms going up to the shoulder, 3 red claw-like marks could be seen on both sides. Although it looked nice, Quinn was hoping for the suit to be all black. If he was also to use this at night, he probably would have been seen. Nevertheless, when he looked at Logan's bags and his tired face, he found it hard to say no. "It's great," Quinn replied. "Now, I do have to warn you, although expensive metals were used when making this, there is a limit to how much it can endure," Logan explained. "They were only basic tier crystals after all. It will fare well against intermediate weapons, but anything stronger than that and it will tear apart." Quinn made sure to make a note of that, since it would be the same while facing beasts. If he was fighting during the day, he would be sure to pick and choose his opponents. Although suddenly, Quinn's body started to feel a strange sensation. It was a similar feeling to when he consumed blood, only a tad different. His eyes started to glow once again. A strange power was surging through his body. "What the hell is happening?" Quinn thought. "Hey, are you okay?" Logan said. "Do you need me to go get a doctor or something?" As Logan stood in front of Quinn, he could see the color in his eyes change, and even Logan stepped back a bit. At the same time, little metallic bugs started to come over and built a metallic suit of their own over his body. Eventually, the bugs had completely formed a metallic suit that looked like that of a small mech suit, only without all the clunky parts and more in line with the shape of a human. These were all precautions that Logan took just in case Quinn was to go out of control. But then the feeling died down, and his eyes returned to normal, but a message had appeared. "A family member has grown stronger." Standing alone in the fantasy section of the library was Erin and a strange boy known as Fex. Erin was still holding a vampire love story in her hand, and her face had gone bright red, as she couldn't believe someone had just caught her reading such a dirty book. Quickly hoping to avoid further embarrassment, Erin put the book back where it was placed and started to walk over towards the boy. Fex started to smile. "Now, why don't you lift your head so I can take another look at your pretty face?" Erin lifted her head, but dashed forward in an instant. A type of ice sword was forming in her right hand. Using her forearm, she pushed Fex up against the wall right by his neck. The area started to freeze, and now the ice sword was pointed right at his throat. "If you tell anyone about what you saw today, you're dead, you hear me?" "Look, I don't want to cause any trouble," he said. Erin looked at him carefully, noticing all the features that he had. "Good. I will remember you, and if anyone finds out about what you saw today, I'll be coming back for you," Erin said as she took away the ice sword. She then started her exit, leaving Fex in this sticky situation, frozen to the wall with the ice, still confining his body. "Wait!" he shouted. "Aren't you going to let me go?" Eventually, Erin had left the library. The other people who were nearby going to look at the commotion down the aisle, wondering what was going on. However, all they could see was a single man stuck up against the wall. A few laughed and giggled, as it wasn't the first time they had seen something like this. After all, few of the braver boys among the first-year students had tried to confess their love to Erin. She would often leave them there frozen in place while waiting for the ice to melt. She did this as a warning for other suitors in the future. While no one was looking, Fex used his strength to break free both of his arms from the ice. He then used his hands to crack the ice that was around his neck as well. "Looks like someone was able to resist my charm already," Fex said. "Well now, that just makes me want to go after her more." Fex's original plan was to travel and explore the human world, to experience all the things his grandfather had told him, but his plans were quickly stopped once he was caught.
When he woke up, he was in front of General Nathan. However, Nathan did say that as long as he contacted his guardians, informed them, and showed proof of his age, they would set him free. A digital display then appeared in front of Fex's face with a little digital keyboard. It asked him what type of ability he had. For this question, he had a plan. After checking over the details and seeing Fex's ability, no more work needed to be done. A wristwatch was given to Fex before leaving. The display on the device was showing the number 1. Not knowing what to do, and knowing nearly no one at the base, Fex decided to head to the library to update himself on current events. This led him to his first real encounter with another student, Erin. The rest of the story was what got him frozen to a wall. After looking at a few books about vampires, he quickly realized that most of them were just a bunch of nonsense. As Fex was leaving the library, he had no idea what to do, so he decided that he would just go to his dorm room. While walking down the hallway towards the staircase, he caught a whiff of scent with his nose, and a familiar smell registered in his mind. Now this is interesting. I wonder what family he belongs to. What on earth is he doing at this base? Fex thought. In the dark alley away from the prying eyes, the two of them stood there in shock as they watched Peter feasting on a human body. Seeing the atrocious sight, Layla could no longer stomach it. "I think I'm just going to step out of the alley for a bit and keep watch," Layla said as she quickly rushed out. "Peter!" Vorden said in an aggressive but quiet voice. "Peter!" Suddenly, Peter seemed to snap out of whatever daze he was in. He immediately dropped what was in his hand and started to scurry away into the alley. "Was this me?" Peter said as he thought back to what had happened just moments ago. When Earl had called out to him and kicked him down the alley, a type of rage had consumed him. Then, soon after, Earl became a tasty snack for Peter. Peter would have liked to say his mind was out of it. He didn't know what he was doing, but he knew that was a lie. Peter knew exactly what he was doing. The only thing Peter didn't plan for was what happened after. Right now, in front of Vorden, Peter needed to keep up his act as a weak-minded boy. He was too worried about what the others would think of him if they found out he knew exactly what he had just done. I just killed someone," Peter said. "Cut the crap," Vorden said. "Now is not the time to act like this. How long has he been dead for?" "What do you mean?" Peter replied. "I said how long. It's important, Peter. 5 minutes? 10 minutes? The panic in Vorden's voice seemed to be getting urgent. "I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, I would say," Peter answered. Wasting no time, he then grabbed Peter by the arm and dragged him out of the alley. "We have to get out of here now," he said with urgency in his voice. When the area was clear, they would walk again until they finally returned to the open spot in the forest where they were practicing a while ago. "What was the big rush back there? We just left the body in the alleyway. Won't the school find out that a student died?" Layla asked. "We had no choice," Vorden replied. "Maybe if we had gotten there a little earlier we could have done something, taken the body with us. But once the watch is taken off or detects no sign of life, it pings a message to the school. Fortunately for us, the watch waits a full 5 minutes before sending this type of thing. That's why I was in a rush. If we were seen, there's nothing we could have done. At least now we won't be caught." "But what about the body? Won't they search for whoever did this?" Just as Layla said this, the sound of leaves ruffling on the floor could be heard as another person entered this part of the forest. It was a student holding an umbrella in his hand. "What body are you guys talking about?" Quinn asked. Once the strange feeling had come over, Quinn's body had disappeared. A message appeared, one stating that one of his family members had gotten stronger. The strange sensation and connection between him and Peter. It was a similar feeling to when he consumed blood, but it wasn't getting him stronger, it was Peter. "I'm sorry, Logan. Thanks all for your help, but I don't have time to talk now. I have to go," Quinn shouted. With that, Quinn ran down the hallway and the staircase, rushing over to where Peter was. Without slowing down, Quinn ran down the stairs and out the hallway, ignoring everyone he went past. But for the first time, a strange scent entered his nose. It was unusual for Quinn, as he had never smelt this before. If he wasn't in such a rush and panic, he would have turned around to see who was giving off such a strange smell. Before leaving the school, he grabbed a random umbrella at the entrance. Once he had left the academy, he continued to listen to his body, following the connection, which eventually led him to the park and finally inside the forest. As he arrived, he managed to hear the last few words that Layla had said. However, there wasn't much to ask. Judging by the system's message, Quinn could guess what had happened already. Peter had eaten human flesh, and most likely killed someone in the process. While Quinn wanted to blame Peter for the actions, he really couldn't. Quinn was the one who turned him into this creature, and he knew exactly what it was like. As Vorden was exiting the forest from where Quinn had gone, he whispered into Quinn's ear, "You need to do something about him, and fast." "Now, can one of you please tell me what happened?" Quinn asked. Meanwhile, Vorden made sure to cover the clothes as best as he could. Then, from his and Peter's closets, he grabbed a change of clothing. With a new set of clothes for Peter in one bag and the bloody clothes in the other, he needed to find a way to get rid of the evidence. Just as he was walking down the hall wondering what to do about it, he spotted someone who would make his life a lot easier for him. "Hey, Berg," Vorden said. "How are you doing?" Placing the bag in his left hand into his other hand, he touched Berg on the shoulder and successfully copied his flame abilities. "Oh, Vorden," Berg said with a fake smile on his face. "It's so nice to see you. About those crystals, you don't have to worry about giving them back. Think of it as a gift from my family to yours." "Oh, thanks. I was just coming to check if that was okay with you," Vorden replied. But while Vorden was doing his best to fake a conversation, he noticed that many of the students in the hallway were gossiping about something. "Did you hear about what they found?" one of the students said. "You mean that thing they found behind the second-year building?" another replied. "Yeah, all the students are outside, while the school's investigation team is trying to find out what happened. I think maybe a student got killed." Using this opportunity, Vorden was able to sneak off into a secluded area and burn all the evidence without anyone noticing. Several soldiers were standing outside the second-year building. They were blocking all the entrances both at the front and backside of the building. Looking around the gruesome scene of the murder, Haley and Faye were reminded of things they had seen on the battlefield during the war. That's how bad it looked to them. As Haley was kneeling on the floor and examining body parts, she seemed to be unaffected by the whole thing. After she had looked around for a while, it seemed like she had spotted something interesting. She started to pick up body parts one by one and place them in a specific order. "I noticed something strange about all the parts I've gathered and lined up. They all have one thing in common," Haley replied. "As far as I can see, the only thing they have in common is that they are spattered with blood all over. So what did you notice?" Faye asked as she looked around. She was trying to see what Haley had noticed. Haley picked up one of the body parts which looked like part of a leg. She then showed it to Faye and said, "You see this here?" while she pointed at 2 puncture marks. "For the most part, it looks like whoever or whatever did this used some type of claw to dig into this student's flesh, but on a few body parts, I noticed those puncture wounds that look like teeth marks." "Okay, I see what you're saying," Faye said with confusion on her face. "Well, the thing is, this isn't the first time that I've seen these kinds of marks. Do you remember when we went through the red portal and we discovered the true dream member?" Haley asked. "Well, he wasn't the only one. I've seen the same marks on other students in the sickbay before." "You're not saying those 2 students could have anything to do with it, are you?" Faye asked incredulously. "I'm not saying that they are the culprit, but whatever it is, it's following them around, or linked to them in some way," Haley replied. Inside the first-year building dorm room, the group had gathered. "Damn it!" Layla shouted. "Now that I've witnessed everything, I'll be called an accomplice. If they find out about this, we could be put in the dungeon. What will I tell my parents then?" It was the first time the group had seen Layla so freaked out. "Peter, I think you owe us an explanation," Vorden said. "Fair enough, if you were hungry and needed to eat something, why didn't you come to us?" "I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me," Peter said. "When the hunger grew and Earl slapped me, I just lost control. When I finally regained control, I was already eating his corpse. I don't know what happened in between." Peter turned out to be quite an impressive actor. He looked frightened and worried, and everyone there bought it. Although, there was one exception. "He's lying," the system said. "What do you mean?" Quinn asked. "If you want to find out the truth, here is my advice. This is what you need to do. You need to tell me the truth, Peter. Why did you kill him?" As Quinn asked this question, he bit down on his thumb using his fang. He then lifted his hand, and like some type of magnet, Peter was attracted to it. Peter immediately leapt up from where he was and started to suck on Quinn's thumb. The connection between the two started to grow stronger again, and both of their eyes started to glow. "Now, tell me, why did you kill that student?" Quinn again used that authoritative voice. Peter's eyes lit up red and felt an urge to answer truthfully. It was like a magic truth spell. It forced Peter to be truthful with his master. "Earl, if it was anyone that deserved to die, it was him. Any day whenever I was on my own, and when your backs were turned from me, he would come to torture me. After I met with Duke, I got rewarded with the ability books, but he didn't get anything from Duke, so he wanted to take out his anger on me. But this time, I finally had the power to fight back, so I decided to show him he can't mess with me anymore. Eating him was just a little bonus, and I might have overdone it a bit." Hearing the truth come out of Peter's mouth made Quinn feel a lot better. "Peter, your actions aren't wrong, and if I was in your shoes I would have done the same thing," Vorden said. "But here's where you and I are different. Your actions also put Quinn in danger. If you're caught, there is always a chance that it could lead back to him, and what's even more dangerous is that we are involved as well." Vorden glared at Peter before continuing. "I plan to take my revenge on Duke and Momo in our second year, but when I do, I will do it carefully so no one else gets hurt." "System, is there any way for Peter to stop consuming meat, any way at all?" Quinn asked. "Of course there is, but you're not going to like the answer I'm about to give you," the system said. "Just like yourself when you consume blood, you grow stronger. The same goes for Peter when he eats human flesh, although for him there is a limit. Eventually he will grow so strong that he will be able to evolve and will no longer require human flesh." The next day had arrived, and the usual suspects were inside the same room once again, all deciding on what to do with Peter. "So, do you feel hungry right now?" Layla asked. "Not any more than usual when I wake up," Peter replied. Vorden and Quinn had already bought plenty of raw food for him to eat, and for now, it seemed to have been working in suppressing his hunger. "Guys, relax," Peter said nervously. "I promise, as soon as I get hungry again, I'll let you guys know straight away." "Still," Vorden said, "that doesn't solve our problem of feeding you when you do need to be fed. We may have gotten away with it this time, but we need something consistent." Quinn had thought of these suggestions early, but once again the system had informed him of bad news. The meat being used had to be fairly fresh. The pressure was getting to Quinn. "Quinn, relax," Vorden said. "I have an emergency if it comes to it. For now, spend your day like a normal person, while Layla and I will try to come up with something. If it doesn't work out, then we can use my backup plan." "What is the backup plan?" Layla asked. Vorden then called Quinn over and whispered into his ear while looking at Layla out of the corner of his eye. "Vorden, I can't let you do that," Quinn said. "As I said, only if it comes to it. It's the only thing that won't put us in any danger," Vorden replied. There were plenty of cases where soldiers would get injured in mock battles or out on expeditions during portal training, and sometimes there would be lethal damage. But while Quinn was outside, he decided to stop off at a certain spot. Quinn needed to make sure he was fine first. "You are being hit by direct sunlight. All stats will be reduced by 70%. Shadow equip," Quinn called out. The shadow started to wrap around his whole body this time, and a few seconds later, the black suit that Logan had designed covered his entire body, and the demon-like mask was planted on his face. "You are no longer being affected by sunlight. All stats have returned to normal." With his white glaring eyes and demon-like mask, then the red claws ran up the side of his arms. He truly did look like something out of a kid's nightmare. After testing out his new suit, he put it back away in his shadow void and decided to start heading towards the hospital. In nearly every corner of the room, there was a round object with a blinking red light. They were cameras. This was a major problem. If Quinn or the others were to try to take anything, they would be caught on camera. And he couldn't use the suit, otherwise, when he would reveal himself, everyone would know it was him. There was the option of using a shadow cloak. Although that made him invisible, the same couldn't be said for the objects he or others were touching. With nothing else to see, Quinn decided to head back, although while doing so, he couldn't help but notice all the blood bags around him. Just as Quinn was leaving the hospital, a voice message seemed to appear on his watch. "Quinn Talon, you are to report to General Nathan's office immediately. If you are not here in the next 30 minutes, then we shall have guards come and escort you here immediately." The message ended, and Quinn couldn't help but feel nervous. Had they found out about him being a vampire? Or maybe Peter had been found and he had been ratted? He stood in front of Nathan's office and gave a knock before entering. "Come in," Nathan said. As Quinn entered through the door, he could see Nathan standing there with Haley and Faye in the room. But that wasn't what worried him. The person that worried him the most was the female who sat at the desk in front. It was a person whose abilities could tell if one was lying or not. "Please, Quinn, take a seat," Nathan said. "I'm going to head out for a bit. There's something I need to do, just in case we can't come up with anything," Vorden said. "Do you mind telling me what the backup plan is?" Layla asked. "Trust me, even if you did know, it wouldn't be possible for you, and I don't think you would want to do it." "Why don't you try me?" she said with a smug look on her face. Vorden then walked towards the door to leave the room where Layla was standing, and as he walked past, he whispered the plan into her ear. After hearing Vorden's plans, her eyes opened wide, and her face dropped to the floor. At that moment, her whole opinion of Vorden had changed. In fact, what he said was true. If it was her in this situation, she was unsure if she could do the same thing. With Vorden gone to make sure his backup plan was ready if all else failed, Peter and Layla were left alone in the room together. As the two of them sat there awkwardly in silence, Layla was starting to miss the crazy boy a bit. At least he was a conversation starter. All the pain he had suffered from Earl had gone just like that, in an instant. If Quinn had this power all along, why didn't he do anything? Peter thought to himself. It's a waste on him, Peter thought. As they continued to do their own thing, a rumbling sound was heard. It immediately made Layla jump from the bed she was on and look for the door. "Peter," she eyed him warily, "you're not getting hungry, are you?" "I think it's starting," Peter admitted. Although Quinn said it was unlikely he would get hungry within one day after feeding, there was still a possibility that something could happen today, which meant Vorden would have to make sure his backup plan was ready each and every day. As he opened the door, though, he was surprised to see Layla standing in the corner of the room while having her bow pointed at Peter. "Whoa, what is going on here?" Vorden asked. But before either of the two could say anything, a message was received on Vorden's watch. "Vorden Blade, you are to head to Nathan's office immediately. Judging by your location, you should be able to reach us in 5 minutes. If you are not here, then prepare to face the consequences." "What is this about?" Vorden said. "You heard the message. I've got to go. And you two, stop fighting and make up. We have enough problems as it is." "No, wait!" Layla cried, but the door had already shut, and Vorden was rushing off to the office. "I'm sorry, Peter," Layla said. "Let's just keep it like this for now. I'll stay by the door, and if anything happens, I'll leave first." "Well, why don't you let me head over to the fridge and see if I can try to make the hunger go away?" Peter asked. Layla took a deep breath before replying. "Fine." Using her telepathic ability, she opened the fridge door and pulled out a piece of meat for Peter, making sure Peter kept his hands up while she was doing this. After seeing what he was capable of and what happened to Earl, she wasn't taking any chances. "Quinn, where the hell are you?" Layla thought. "Now, Quinn, I'm sure you're thinking why we called you here, right?" Nathan said. "Well, as you may know, there was a death yesterday, and we're trying to find out who's responsible." "Wait, you're saying it wasn't a beast?" Quinn said, trying to act surprised. "Well, it might be, who knows? All we do know is there have been quite a few cases like this before. However, death seems to be following you around lately, and we need to know if it's bad luck, or maybe it's someone with bad luck that is following you around. So please, if you could touch the pretty lady's hand, we can begin the questioning." Quinn obeyed the order dutifully. At first, there was no reaction as the woman had yet to activate her ability. All Quinn could hope for now was that they would ask him simple questions like last time. But this time was different. It was the second time he was being interrogated, so they must have found some type of link, linking him to the others. But the truth was he really did have no clue about what happened to Brandon. He only knew about Loop. "Now, Quinn, do you know the truth of what happened to Earl Hampton yesterday?" the lady asked. This was it, Quinn thought. Her hand started to glow, and energy started to enter Quinn through his hands. Then a message from the system appeared. "An ability has been detected. User's mental strength and charm is strong enough to block the ability. Would you like to block the ability?" To his surprise, a new message had appeared, unlike what happened last time. It was an unexpected but welcome result. It seemed like the charm stat was becoming more useful with every new problem he faced. The issue now was if he blocked the girl's ability, would she be able to tell it was blocked? After confirming with the system that he wished to block her ability, Quinn answered the question. "No." She then let go of Quinn's hands. "He's telling the truth," she said. The reason why she believed this was because of how her ability worked. It couldn't actually tell if someone was telling the truth or if someone was lying. The ability could actually only determine if someone was lying. The interrogation went on after the girl touched Quinn's hands again. Nathan was asking Quinn questions about the missing students from before, and eventually this line of questioning led to the bite marks. Quinn answered the questions he could as truthfully as possible, but whenever he wanted something to stay hidden, he would use the system to block the girl's ability. "All right, the interrogation is over, Quinn," Nathan said. "It seems like you were innocent, just like we thought." "Oh, then why did you try to question me?" Quinn asked. "Just to be absolutely certain," Nathan replied. Then, a few moments later, a knock at the door was heard. "Come in," Nathan shouted. Vorden had walked through the door, and to his surprise, Quinn was there with them. "Please, Vorden, is it? If you could sit in this chair, we would like to ask you a few questions." As soon as Vorden had entered the room and saw Quinn and the others, he tried his best to figure out what was going on. Judging by the fact the head of the first year's, General Nathan, was here, suggests it was very serious. However, Vorden couldn't link him and Quinn. How had he concluded the two of them were involved in something? If someone had spotted them when they were escaping with Peter, it would make more sense for them to call Layla and Peter, not Quinn. The only thing that the two of them had done together was head to the Red Portal planet. Unknown to both of them, the thing that had linked the two together were the bite marks. It was too much of a coincidence to see bite marks on multiple students, as well as one on the Red Portal planet. The one connection they all had was Quinn. But they had their doubts it could be him, so now their number one suspect was the person who was with Quinn at the time of these events. "Please sit down," Nathan said politely. One thing was for sure, Vorden was happy that it was Nathan in the room and not Duke. After learning everything that Duke had done to try and get rid of him for some reason, Vorden would have tempted to attack him right then and there. Vorden sat down in the chair opposite the woman. While he was sitting, he would give the odd glance towards Quinn. He could see that Quinn had a worried look on his face, which meant something was going to happen that he wouldn't like. "Now, we're just here to ask you a few questions, Vorden. Simple, right?" Nathan said with a smile. Usually, Vorden was quite good at reading people, but for some reason, Nathan creeped him out with that smile, because it was nearly impossible for him to tell if it was genuine or not. "But I warn you to answer truthfully now, for our beautiful woman here can catch your lie in an instant." Suddenly, Vorden realized why Quinn was fidgeting so much and why he looked so worried. They were questioning Vorden about some type of event. Had they found out what he was and just wanted him to confirm it, or did it have something to do with Peter? The problem was Vorden himself didn't know how much information Quinn had revealed. The woman then held out her hand for Vorden to touch it. While the two of them touched each other's hand, Vorden had copied the woman's abilities, but he didn't know how it worked, and it wasn't something he could figure out right now. If he could, perhaps there was a way he could use it against her. "Did you have anything to do related to the death of the student named Earl Hampton?" she asked. Vorden didn't answer immediately because he was trying to think. Hearing that name, Vorden finally knew why they had called him. He didn't know why Quinn had been asked to come here, or what Quinn had said, but the best thing to do now was to lie and not get caught. All Vorden could do was hope that Quinn had done the same. The teachers had made one mistake before interrogating Vorden, and that was telling him the abilities of the female in front of him. If her ability worked similarly to the lie detectors of the past, then as long as the person answering believed their answer, or if they didn't know the answer, then it would still be seen as the truth. Although Vorden was there, the same couldn't be said for Syl. He couldn't rely on Rayton because Rayton often stood by Vorden's side when he was on the chair watching everything he did while criticizing and advising him. But it was different for Syl. Syl spent most of his time sleeping in the room or just sitting in the back staring blankly in front of him. This was the only option he had, and he hoped it would work. He closed his eyes and left the chair. As he did, he walked over towards Syl, who was in a fetal position rocking backwards and forwards like he usually did. "Syl, there's some lady who wants to ask you some questions," Vorden said. "All you need to do is answer them, and then we can go play." "Play?" Syl replied, staring at Vorden. "Yeah, Quinn is in the room as well, and they asked him the same question. So I need you to do the best you can to answer for me now, okay?" Whenever Vorden spoke to Syl, he would speak in a slow, patient voice, like a mother did while talking to their child. This was because Syl's mind was quite childlike. One wrong word could set him off on a tantrum. Usually, parents were stronger than their kids, though, and if this were to happen, they could control them. But in this case, Syl was both stronger than Rayton and Vorden, so they always had to speak to Syl very carefully. "Okay, and then Quinn and I can play together, right?" Syl asked. "Yeah, but maybe only for a little bit, okay?" Vorden replied. Syl sat there as if he was thinking about it. Meanwhile, outside Vorden's mind, "If you don't reply, Vorden, we have to take your silence as a confession that you were involved somehow," Nathan said. Just as Vorden was about to give up and go back into the chair, Syl replied. "Deal," Syl said with a smile on his face. Syl stood up and ran over to the chair with a smile on his face. Back outside, Syl was happily smiling away, looking at the people around him. When he spotted Quinn, he started to wave. Quinn found the actions weird, especially when they were in a tough situation like this. This behavior was unlike how Vorden usually acted. Still, Quinn decided to wave back, which put an even bigger smile on Syl's face. "You have a question for me?" Syl said, pointing at himself. Even the woman was a little taken aback by the change in attitude, but decided to press on. She repeated the question and asked again. "No, I wasn't there," Syl replied. "I don't even know who this Earl is. The only person I know is Quinn," Syl said, pointing in Quinn's direction. The woman continued to ask questions that Nathan had presented, and Syl continued to answer in a naive, childlike manner. "He's telling the truth. Not a single time did either of them lie." Nathan then went to adjust the glasses on his face, a habit of his when he was stressed out. "Maybe we do have a beast roaming around the school." Nathan then looked at the two of them. His gut feeling was telling him something was wrong. But it was impossible. The woman's ability was telling them they were looking in the wrong direction. "You two stay here for now," Nathan said. "We're going to keep you here for a while and pull up some people who were around the scene at the time, see if anyone spotted you there too." "Huh? But we already answered your questions," Quinn complained. "Look, if you're not guilty, then you have nothing to worry about, right?" Nathan replied. "All I ask is that you stay here a little longer." With that, most of the sergeants had left the room to try and gather more information. The only ones left inside were Faye and the woman. Now that the two of them were no longer under interrogation, they were free to sit on the couch and relax together. Right now, Faye was busy looking over some documents with the woman, while the two boys were sitting next to each other. But while doing so, Syl couldn't help but keep smiling at Quinn. Vorden, are you okay?" Quinn asked. Syl then turned his head to the left and right to check if anyone was nearby, before placing his hand over his mouth and whispered, "Oh, I'm not Vorden. My name is Syl." "Will you calm the heck down?" Rayton shouted. Vorden was continuously pacing up and down as he saw Syl take control of the seat in the black room. It was a rare occurrence. Syl usually came out in times of danger, and even then, once the danger was over, he would return to his dark corner. Yet for some reason, Syl seemed to be slightly changing ever since Vorden had first met Quinn. Vorden liked the change and thought Quinn would eventually be a good influence on him, but now was not the time. They were in a tense situation, and Quinn had enough on his mind. Vorden could do nothing but stand there. He was afraid if he was to approach Syl, he might freak out and remain in control the whole time. "Vorden, are you okay?" Quinn whispered back. Syl quickly shook his head rapidly. "I told you, my name is Syl. I've been waiting to meet you, Quinn." Quinn did not know how to react to this. He calmed down and started to think. How did Vorden manage to escape the interrogation with the woman? Was it something to do with his power, or something entirely different? Right now, Vorden was claiming to be a different person. If the person before him didn't look exactly like Vorden, he would have believed him. Maybe it is an ability he copied before coming here, Quinn thought. A mind swap ability which allowed Vorden to fool the woman. "Vorden, you are a genius." "Nice to meet you, Syl," Quinn smiled back. "Thanks for helping us back there. We owe you one." "No problem at all," Syl said. He lifted his hand and started rubbing Quinn's curly hair as if he was a cute dog. Quinn was starting to have odd feelings about this. If it was just the two of them in a room, he would have pulled away or even pushed Vorden, not Syl, back. But they were still under watch, and he didn't want to cause a scene. "If you ever need any help, you can always call me." Inside the black room, Syl left the chair and walked away. As he crossed Vorden, he said, "Thank you. It looks like he won't become another caser after all." Hearing that name brought back bad memories for Vorden and Rayton. But now was not the time to think about it. Vorden quickly rushed over to the chair and took control. To Vorden's side was Quinn, however. His hand was still on top of Quinn's hair. His face went bright red as he pulled his hand back. Sorry about that. That was... Vorden started to stumble on his words. That wasn't you, I could tell, Quinn replied. Good thinking on the mind swap thing. For now, as long as none of us was seen that day, we have nothing to worry about. As the words left Quinn, he felt something fade away from his body. He was losing an important part of himself. The connection with something was being lost, and he knew exactly what it was. What's wrong? Asked Vorden. Grabbing his chest, Quinn replied, I think it's Peter. He is hungry. I can't control him for much longer. I'm already losing the connection. But it was only yesterday that he had his fill, said Vorden, making sure to keep his voice down. I know. Guess we are just unlucky. At this rate, if he doesn't get it every day, he will continue to starve, and I'm afraid when he is hungry, I can't control him as I did earlier. When Vorden heard Quinn's words, his mind went back to the time before he came to Nathan's office. When he entered the room, he remembered seeing Layla pointing an arrow at Peter. Did it already start back then? Vorden thought. They had been in the interrogation room for nearly 2 hours now. As they looked outside, the sun had already set and was replaced with the night sky. Quinn, we have to get out of here, Vorden said, grabbing him by the hand. I think Layla's in trouble. A beep was heard in the room as the door slid open, and in came Nathan, followed by Faye and Haley. Looks like we are in luck and someone found something, Nathan said with a smile. Just behind them, another student entered the room. Inside the dorm room, Peter had eaten every single bit of raw meat he could find in the fridge, but it didn't help his hunger at all, and the pains in his stomach were starting to get worse. Peter, please, you're starting to scare me, Layla said. He was now hunched over the floor, grabbing his stomach. Layla, please, just leave, Peter shouted. I can't. What if you go kill someone again? Come on, you can fight it. I've been on diets 10 times worse than this, only I drank juice with no food. Would you believe that? Layla continued rambling on, in the hope of calming both Peter's nerves as well as her own. I would rather it be someone who deserved it than you, Peter said as he looked up at her from the ground. You were the one who taught me how much of a scumbag I was, but I'm different now. At that moment, he felt as if someone was reaching down into his stomach with their hand and were trying to pull all the food he had just eaten up and onto the floor. A few seconds later, everything that Peter ate came back up, along with some greenish liquid. Peter, are you okay? Layla asked, with a concerned look on her face. As Peter raised his head, his eyes were glowing a bright red. His 2 front fangs grew larger. They were sticking out over his lower lip now. He slowly got up from the ground and made his way toward Layla. Peter, I'm sorry, Layla said, as Peter edged closer to her. She let go of the drawn arrow, aiming for Peter's knee. The arrow hit the mark. It made no difference, as Peter didn't even try to dodge the arrow. He pulled the arrow out from his knee and broke it with a snap. The mark left by the arrow healed instantly. This was it. She tried her best to control him, but it was clear that Peter was no longer present. He was just another monster now. She reached for the door and tried opening it, but a loud crash, as if someone had just broken glass, made her pause. Turning around, she saw the bedroom window was broken. She rushed to the window, avoiding the broken glass. As she looked outside, there was no sign of Peter. They were currently in a 3-story building. If a human was to jump from here without any support, they would break their legs. But Peter was no longer human. Peter limped in the darkness towards the forest. The fall broke his legs, but even as he walked, they continued to heal. I won't hurt any of you guys, I promise, Peter told himself, but I have to do something to get rid of this hunger. A student came out behind the teachers, one that Quinn wasn't familiar with. However, Vorden knew him quite well. As soon as the student entered and looked at the 2 of them, he also noticed Vorden. The student was Berg Sunshield. At the sight of Vorden, his palms suddenly started to sweat. After seeing him on planet Kaladi, Berg had decided to try to gather more information about him and his family. He had informed his family members that he had met up with one of the Blades. Immediately, their tone of voice had changed, and his father said to do whatever he could to make sure the Blades wouldn't get upset with them. It was a strange reaction. Although his father didn't carry a high rank in his family, he was still respected as a member of one of the Big Four. It was the first time he had seen him act like this at the mention of anyone's name. The even stranger thing was when Berg had tried to search for information about the Blade family, he couldn't find anything. Nothing at all about what type of ability they had, nothing about their contributions to the war. Even upon asking his friends, none of them seemed to have ever heard about the Blade family, so it made the reaction his father had all the more strange. Soon enough, though, his father's fear became his fear, and the mystery behind Vorden grew within his mind. Now, Berg here said on the day of the event he saw a student running through the halls looking quite panicked, Nathan said. Humans are strange things, you see, and they love a little bit of gossip, while everyone else was heading to the second-year building to see what was going on. A single student was running in the opposite direction. Coincidentally, though, Berg's description seems to match one of you, a curly, black-haired boy. Quinn remained silent. There was no way they could convict him just for having a suspicion. The problem was that they now had a witness, and because they were suspicious of him, they would probably keep a closer eye on him from now on. This would only cause more problems in the future, especially now he had Peter running wild in his ranks. He decided the best thing to do for now was to just keep his mouth shut. If he said anything, it would be easy to slip up and make everything worse. Vorden then started to laugh by his side. "You think Quinn did it?" Vorden said. "Come on, the two of them don't even share the same classes. Besides, do you know how many curly-haired students with black hair there are in this school? Well, you see, Vorden, that's why we brought him here, so he could confirm who he saw that day." That day, Berg had seen Quinn running through the halls. As soon as he entered the room, he recognized him, but seeing Vorden defend him so suddenly, like he knew something was up. "This isn't the kid I saw that day," Berg said. "I'm pretty sure it was someone else." "What?" Nathan said. "Are you sure? Come closer and take another look." Berg did as asked and stepped closer and looked at Quinn carefully, trying to act the best he could. He took a glance at Vorden. He must have been imagining things because he was seeing and feeling a strange power emitting from him, but that can't be possible.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.